If you support the work of this channel, then become a member on Patreon. Here, you will take advantage of exclusive content and you will help develop the channel, allowing for progression and development such as recording equipment, editing, and allowing me to dedicate more time towards content creation. Patreon membership is $1 per month. There's no contract and you can cancel at any time. So become a member on Patreon today. The link is in the description.
Obviously, I have no limit when I get angry, and like obviously he said that I need help with that because people are generally saying to me, one of you are going to end up dead, like, and I fully believe that I'm quite capable of killing him if he hurts me again.
There is an ever-growing narrative that men are the presumed perpetrators in the event of domestic abuse. In some instances, this may be the case, but to assume that no woman has or is currently abusing their partner would be the wrong assumption to make. Quite simply put, just as there are men who abuse their partner, there are also women who abuse their partner. Here is Abigail White, a 24-year-old woman from Bristol, England, United Kingdom, and a mother of 4. White uploaded sexual content to OnlyFans to make ends meet under the names Mitzi Lewis and Fake Barbie. White reportedly made £50,000 in 1 year on OnlyFans. However, due to a higher volume of users, this dropped to about £1,000 per month. The rise of OnlyFans has subsequently led to an unprecedented rise of people, predominantly females, having the opportunity to generate huge incomes and garner levels of fame that to many would have previously been seen as unattainable. However, by the same token, this will inevitably lead to a rise in self-importance and narcissistic traits. White had an extremely turbulent childhood. When she was 2 years old, her father would violently beat her mother. To add to this, when she was 4 years old, her parents split up, leading to White having a stepfather. The stepfather would then go on to abuse White. White eventually went into the care of her grandparents. It's interesting studying the kinesis of a person's life when analysing the comparable differences between an individual who grew up in a household with 2 loving parents who are together, and an individual who grew up in a broken household where the parents are not together, or one where the parents are together but are in a destructive relationship.
Battery, attempted carjacking, and grand theft. His mother talking to him during visitation hours at the Orange County Jail. The 19-year-old Lloyd found out his father is now accused of a second murder.
My daddy was on the news.
For what? For what?
For killing that girl. One of his girlfriends.
The police too?
He killed the police too?
Yesterday.
Yesterday? I knew he was gonna start doing that. Where?
Walmart.
He got away?
Yes.
Figured that too.
Lloyd and his mother spoke for about 30 minutes, his mother often with an exasperated look on her face and tone in her voice.
You just can't kill people in Walmart. You gotta do it smarter than that.
Smart push. No smart way to do that, bro.
Moments later, Lloyd's mood faded as he reflected on his father's influence on his life.
You gotta break that curse. He was alright till you started dealing with that.
I got kicked out of school when he got out of jail and everything. I ain't gonna blame him for that.
Chaz White was born in Columbus, Ohio, to a family already in the system. Both his father and uncle serving time. And at an early age, he started to chart his own course.
12 years old, I'm just like, Dad locked up. When he out, he running the streets, ain't doing nothing for my mom. I gotta do something, so I started selling cocaine.
Wow, it's a 22 and half-year sentence. I'm going to be graduated from college. So it's like, okay, they've taken my childhood, my adolescent years, and really he'll be out when I get to medical school, because that's really like where I aspire to go. So his early release, really, it was good. At first it still is unbelievable now, actually, but it just made me think, wow, he really wouldn't have been here. I actually used to be ashamed. It was around, I was about 8, and I met my best friend, and her dad was a coal miner. But I actually told my little friend circle, because I have the same 3 best friends that I still have now. And eventually I did tell them, look, my dad is in prison, that's why he's not here. But when he gets out, y'all will meet him. And they were very supportive. But as far as other kids who I felt like would be very judgmental, I used to steal my best friend's dad's job. So I used to be like, oh, my dad's a coal miner, my dad's a coal miner, my dad's a coal miner. And he was not a coal miner.
Ultimately, people who grow up in a loving household with 2 loving parents, collectively speaking, are more well-rounded, more emotionally abundant, and less angry individuals. On the flip side, people who grow up in a single-parent household or a destructive household tend to be more angry, less balanced, and less capable of forming meaningful relationships and sustaining them. This is because people subconsciously copy their parents, and even if the conscious brain detests their surroundings and environment, the subconscious brain registers the contemporary stasis as normal, signifying the importance of understanding the conscious and subconscious brain are 2 different operating software that can either work in tangent or in contrast absent of harmony. And whilst it's important to note that just because someone grew up in a destructive environment, this doesn't necessarily resign them to failure, as there are many instances of the contrary. It's clear that for most, it's a difficult deficit to overcome. This would certainly seem to be the case for White, as you will see as this video transpires. On the 25th of March 2022, Abigail White shouted from the window, pleading for help, as there was a man in the room who was not breathing. The man's name was Bradley Lewis, a 22-year-old male who was loved by many and had his whole life ahead of him. Bradley Lewis and Abigail White were in a relationship together. Bradley was taken to hospital on the 25th of March 2022 with a single stab wound to the chest, but tragically died hours later. Before revisiting that fatal night, let's look at the 2 individuals and how events over a prolonged period of time gradually led to this tragic situation. Lewis and White met when Lewis was 14 and White was 15. The pair developed a relationship which boasted 4 children, 3 of which were Lewis's. However, the premise of their relationship was not calm, but rather stormy and turbulent. As many of you may have previously noticed, I stated that Bradley and White had 4 children together, 3 of which were Lewis's. This is because White had slept with multiple men throughout their relationship, and claimed that Lewis also slept with other women. Furthermore, Lewis's mother, Rachel Hawkins, did not like White. On top of that, many of Lewis's friends attempted to warn Lewis about the personality of White. At one point, social services walked into the household and stated that White and Lewis were no longer allowed to live together. This was unfortunately disregarded on many occasions. White also took cocaine and would also take things too far when drinking alcohol. Furthermore, her TikTok account portrays the image of an attention seeker and someone who should be behaving differently. This is unfortunately a common occurrence, predominantly in females. The reason for this is because of the large amount of attention that females can gain on social media with relative ease. However, the result of this is a constant vying for attention, as opposed to appreciating what is right in front of you, which White clearly didn't appreciate. Clearly, this was a dysfunctional relationship for many reasons, and it's tragic that Lewis did not end the relationship at an earlier stage. Many people stay in dysfunctional relationships because they actually become somewhat accustomed to it, and it actually becomes normal to them. People also stay in dysfunctional relationships because of fear of being alone, despite the relationship not being good for them. They may also stay in a dysfunctional relationship because they fear the psychological state that they will be in if they end up being alone. Also, people stay in dysfunctional relationships because of commitments, such as children, which Lewis did in this case. The dynamic of relationships has drastically changed in modern times due to a number of posturing factors, one of these being dating apps and social media. Fast forward to the 2020s, and the average individual now has access to an unprecedented number of people from the opposite gender to gauge the attention, whether it be sexual or non-sexual. This has subsequently led to a dramatic decrease in relationship security for most couples, and here's why. Never before could you be in the same room as your partner and be prospecting potential future candidates unbeknownst to your current partner. Whereas now, you can technically be in the same room as your partner and simultaneously be on a dating app. The ease of access, coupled with the sexualization of the West, has led to people valuing relationships less. People now value more what's outside as opposed to what's inside, meaning they are more interested in what they could have rather than what they currently have. This would appear to be the case here in this relationship on White's side. White had a boyfriend and 4 children, and instead of appreciating it, she behaved in a complacent manner. On the 19th of March 2022, after an argument, White stabbed Lewis in the arm. This required medical treatment, and when asked by the doctor how the injury occurred, he said the injury was sustained at work. Then, on the 24th of March 2022, White recorded voice notes to her friends.
Obviously, I have no limit when I get angry, and like obviously he said that I need help with that because people are generally saying to me, one of you are going to end up dead, like, and I fully believe that I'm quite capable of killing him if he hurts me again, or I'm going to end up being in prison. But I don't believe a word that comes out of that boy's mouth. I have to beat the living daylights out of him for him to tell me the truth, and he still don't tell me the truth. He only tells me the truth when he thinks I'm going to kill him. Like when I get a knife out, like when I stab him, like, oh, I just don't get this kid.
On the afternoon of the 25th of March 2022, Lewis met White in a park and informed her that he no longer wanted to be with her. Just after 5 p.m, surveillance cameras capture Lewis, White and friends arriving at the Horseshoe pub. They would then make way to the pub's beer garden. At this point, White had taken cocaine, and further to that, she was now mixing it with alcohol, which clearly would be harmful and behaviour altering. Lewis was found crying in the toilets. He said he was scared of her, but he didn't want to leave because he believed she would try to take her own life again. Unsurprisingly, White's mood escalated throughout the night, which led to her slapping a man in the pub that she got into an argument with. He in return hit her back, which caused her to fall to the ground, leading to White being escorted away. White then threw Lewis's drink into his face, angry that Lewis did not stick up for her. Lewis tried to calm White down, but they were pulled apart by other friends. White was told by one of the friends to stop bullying Lewis. White then spat in the friend's face. Their mutual friend Alfie Pike then gave them a lift home. The time was around 7:50 p.m. The couple argued the whole way. Lewis was heard saying, "I'm dead when I get home." Pike was clearly alarmed by the situation and gave Lewis his phone number so he could call if he needed to. Less than 20 minutes later, emergency services were called. At 8:10 p.m, White screamed from the window of her home in Chipperfield Drive, Kingswood, South Gloucestershire, "Help, I can't get through. Can someone call the emergency services? He's not breathing." The first person to respond was next door neighbour Laura Cundy. Cundy ran next door and found Lewis flat on his back in the kitchen. His blood was covering the living room and hallway. A blood-stained knife was found laying on the radiator. Cundy called emergency services. Kundi's husband arrived shortly before the authorities, and when paramedics arrived, they performed medical treatment on Lewis. Bloodstains were found on the ground floor of the home, and several items were found covered in blood. Mrs. Kundi told police that Abby's volume of screeching, "Why aren't they responding and why is it taking so long?" was very loud. She also said of White, she was touching his face and saying, "We love you. Don't leave me. Stay with me. We love you." Mrs. Kundi said White then told her he did it to himself. The police did not believe White's claims that Lewis stabbed himself, and although they let her travel to the hospital with him, they would have immediately made her the prime suspect in the cause of his stab wound. Lewis was taken to hospital with a single stab wound to the chest which penetrated the heart. Tragically, despite medics trying to save Lewis, he had lost too much blood, and at 1:30 a.m. he was pronounced dead. Lewis's family were informed by the police who arrived at their home, and this caused them unimaginable pain and grief. Lewis was an extremely popular individual, shown by the fact that there were 800 people who attended his funeral and wake. Hanham Athletic Football Club, who Lewis played for as a centre-back, held a minute's silence in their game against Bromley Heath. The minute's silence was held by both sides and the 87 supporters that were in attendance at the club's home ground, Vicarage Road. Lewis had been due to play for the reserves team before his death. Family and friends from his years at Bristol Rovers Supporters Football Club played a friendly against Hallen Athletics Football Club. Bristol Rovers Supporters Football Club chairman Steve Cam, speaking about Lewis, said, "He was one of the nicest kids you could ever meet. Sometimes people say that without meaning it, but with Brad it was genuine. He was very placid, amicable and polite. Just one of the good guys in life, like his dad." Lewis left behind a loving family, including 4 children. As previously stated, the police were not convinced of White's claims that Lewis had stabbed himself, and would have no doubt made White the prime suspect in the cause of him being stabbed. The police investigated Lewis's death and found disturbing information. On the 7th of February 2022, White sent Lewis a message saying, "I swear to God, I'll stab you." Before that, she sent a message saying, "I'm going to stab you in the fucking neck." She even threatened to kill Lewis's mother in front of him. Alarmingly, 6 days before Lewis's death, White made several Google searches related to stabbing. White did not take part in a police interview, instead opting to provide police with a prepared statement, where she maintained that Lewis had stabbed himself. However, in July 2022, White pleaded guilty to manslaughter by way of diminished responsibility. White still maintained that she was innocent of murder. This meant that the case went to trial. White told the jury she only wanted to shock and scare Mr. Lewis, and they argued because she felt he had not stuck up for her. She said, "We were arguing and he was pushing me and we were in the hallway. I went into the kitchen and I seen the knife on the side. Picked it up and walked back towards Brad. I went over to him to shock him, to scare him with the knife, and before I knew it, I had stabbed him." To add to that, she denied intending to hurt Lewis. She told the jury, "No, I didn't. It was just over before I even fought. I picked up that knife in anger and upset, but I didn't want to hurt or kill him. I just wish I had told the truth from the beginning." White also explained, according to her, why she initially lied when she claimed that Lewis had stabbed himself. To which she said, "I was scared. I was worried about what was going to happen to me, to Brad and the family." She denied that she had lied to protect herself. This, in my personal opinion, is a lie. It's important to understand the context of legalese and, moreover, the genuinity and meaning of statements made in a court of law versus the speech, statements and social interactions in the context of day-to-day life. White's statements in court would no doubt be revised and under the advice and direction of her lawyer for the purpose of appealing to the jury. It's human nature to want to preserve or improve contemporary circumstances, whether those circumstances are appreciated or not. Only when those current set of circumstances are under threat may an individual truly appreciate the value of those circumstances. And thus, when those circumstances become threatened, the brain's subconscious enters preservation mode. This subsequent preservation mode has one mission, and that is to preserve current set of circumstances at all costs. This could even mean lying or destruction. Relating back to White, preservation would mean avoiding prison. White's life as she knew it from the moment she stabbed Lewis was under threat. Therefore, the inner depths of her subconscious mind would have calculated all the current benefits that she currently enjoyed. These benefits could include seeing her children, meeting friends, going to the pub, to even simple things like waking up in her own bed, eating and drinking the food she wants, or going for a walk. White's subconscious knows that life as she knows it is under threat, and therefore she is going to want to preserve it, which means avoiding prison. I say that to say this. It is of my opinion that White's subconscious being in preservation mode is the subsequent reason that she initially stated that Lewis stabbed himself. Had White seek legal advice before making any statements, self-defense or manslaughter would have more likely have been the revised narrative. This is because the fact that she initially lied about Lewis stabbing himself only strengthens the prosecution's case against her when pursuing a conviction for murder. White was assessed by a number of doctors regarding her mental state. Dr. John Sanford said he believed that White had a personality disorder, but also believed after assessing the facts of the case that Lewis was aware of what she was doing around the time of the stabbing. Sanford said to the jury, "What's the root cause of this offence? In my opinion, it is the dysfunctional relationship from which it arose." He also stated, "I think it is fair to say that she had difficulty controlling her emotions and difficulty controlling her anger." Dr. Sanya Kailages, a clinical psychologist, said more than 99% of people would be better at controlling anger than White. Furthermore, she stated that White had very little coping strategy for controlling her anger and had a condition that meant when roused, the thinking part of her brain shut down. Dr. Bradley Hillier told the jury White suffers from borderline personality disorder. He also said that White's account of what happened was consistent with her having the disorder with emotionally unstable traits. He said she was highly likely to have been in a crisis at the time of killing Lewis. He indicated that White had a diminished responsibility, which was consistent with the stance of the defense. After a 2-week trial and 12 hours of deliberations, White was found guilty of murder beyond reasonable doubt. White was then sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 18 years before she can become eligible for parole. This means White will be 42 before she has any chance of being released on parole. This case demonstrates the potentially devastating consequences that toxic relationships can have. In this instance, not only was this relationship disruptive towards Lewis and White, but also Lewis and White's children. This is because their dad is dead and their mum is incarcerated for killing him. Tragically, one of their children was present when White stabbed Lewis. The death of Lewis is also devastating for the parents of Lewis.
I'm the father of Bradley Lewis, and I'd like to read this following statement outside the Crown Court today. Being here talking to you today is something that you'd never expect to happen to your family, but now that it has, being the kind of person I am and the remainder of Brad's family, it puts into perspective what other people go through, and my thoughts, as I always have, reach out to them. I do not feel that we have received justice, as we have got ourselves a life sentence. Brad's death has brought so much sadness, not just to his family, but the many people that knew him. Proof of this was shown by the hundreds of people that attended his funeral and events that were arranged in his memory. His popularity has also been shown by the memorials that are on display at various locations in South Gloucestershire. We are, in a sense, lucky as a family to still receive overwhelming support from everyone that knew Brad, Rachel, I, or any other members of our family. And I thank those people for that. There's obviously a lot of thanks to go to people, the police, CPS, DCI Ben Lavender and his team, and obviously our family liaison officer Mark, Lucy from Victim Support, And obviously, at the end of the day, the people that got us, in a sense, over the line are the prosecution. So much has obviously gone on, and it's going to be something that we're going to find very, very difficult to overcome. We also would like to thank, although we may have had our ups and downs, social services, Tracy and Tom, who, at the end of the day, have secured the fact that my grandchildren, Brad's children, will all be looked after until at least they're 18. And rightly or wrongfully, I have to thank Sherry and Tony. I know that's Abigail's mum and stepfather, because they're the ones who have taken on the children, and in the future they will be ensuring that I spend time with my grandchildren, which is going to be a great memory, as will Rachel, which will be a great memory for us of our son. Brad would now be saying, "That's enough now, Dad, just shut up." And my famous saying I'd reply was, "That's my boy talking." Thank you all very, very much. If there are any questions, I'll see if we could possibly answer them.
Just if you can, try and sum Bradley up. What kind of a man was he?
A man to be proud of. Loving, thoughtful, loved his family, loved his children, loved, unfortunately, the woman that ended up taking his life. But he'd do anything for anybody if he could. And that is shown by his popularity. You know, the number of people have been in touch since what's happened to Brad, and those people are still grieving today. And that is because of what a popular, thoughtful, helpful person that our son was, and as far as we're concerned, he still is.
Lewis's mother Rachel Hawkins said, "At 4 a.m. on 26 March, part of my world ended when police attended my house. The shock and distress I felt is something that is with me every single day, and I think for the rest of my life. It is something no parent should have to go through, and I find it difficult to function at all. He was a special son to me, and we had a great bond throughout his life. He was a loving and caring person to us all." When referring to White, she added, "I will never forgive or forget. Part of me wants her to suffer inside as I do, and feel the emptiness and unimaginable loss I feel every single day. Bradley Lewis may be gone, but he is certainly not forgotten. I hope his family can find peace in healing, and observers of this video can learn from the events that unfolded in this tragic case."